Hello, friends of Breath Journey. Imagine this scenario. You have dedicated 40 years of your life to working, building a career, paying off the mortgage, and raising your children into adulthood. Now, when you wake up each morning, you possess the most precious asset of all, freedom. But why is it that sometimes within that freedom, we feel a sense of emptiness? Why, when we look in the mirror, instead of seeing pride, do we find ourselves worrying about the wrinkles or the names we suddenly forget? In the West, we are often taught that happiness comes from external success, a beautiful house in Florida, a brand new car, or vacations to Europe. But Buddhism, an Eastern philosophy that companies like Google and Apple, and even doctors at the Mayo Clinic now embrace, tells us something different. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your mind. Today, join me as we explore how to rewire the brain in your 60s and 70s to turn this chapter into true golden years. Not through blind faith, but through neuroscience. There is an old belief that many of our generation hold on to, perhaps even trust implicitly. It's the old saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. We often assume that once we pass 60 or 70, our brains and personalities are frozen, fully formed, and impossible to change. We accept sudden bursts of anger, chronic anxiety, or a lingering sense of sadness as inevitable parts of aging. But my friends, modern neuroscience here in the United States has proven this to be a dangerous misunderstanding. The truth is, your brain is still growing, still changing every single second, even as you are listening to these words. Scientists call this miraculous ability neuroplasticity. Picture your brain as a vast primeval forest. Every thought, every emotion, and every reaction you have is like a footstep walking through that forest. If you worry about your health, complain about the weather, or regret the past every single day, you are walking back and forth on the same negative path. Eventually, that path becomes a superhighway in the brain, making anxiety an automatic reflex, fast and hard to resist. That is simply how the physical brain operates. Interestingly, this biological mechanism aligns perfectly with an ancient Buddhist concept you may have heard of: karma. In this context, let's set aside any mysticism. Karma, viewed through the lens of mind science, is simply habit and action. Karma is not a fate forced upon you by someone else. It is the neural connections you have built over the years. Every time you choose calm over anger, every time you choose joy over complaint, you are letting the grass grow over the old paths of suffering and blazing a new trail toward peace. You are not a victim of your genetics or your age. You are the architect currently redesigning the operating system of your own mind. However, this redesigning is not easy because we live in a culture that worships busyness. Even in retirement, the American mind rarely sits still. We are used to doing mode instead of being mode. When the mind constantly wanders to vague fears about the future or circles back to regrets of the past, your body reacts exactly as if it were facing a tiger. The adrenal glands pump out cortisol, the stress hormone. In high, continuous doses, cortisol acts like acid, corroding your peace, spiking blood pressure, impairing memory, and weakening the immune system that we so desperately need to protect at this age. This is exactly where we need mindfulness. Please don't rush to think of exotic religious imagery or sitting cross-legged in pain for hours. To the practical Western mind, mindfulness is simply a piece of biological technology for body management. It acts as a natural brake for your nervous system. When you actively focus your attention on your breath or fully feel your footsteps on the grass, you are activating the vagus nerve. This is the longest nerve in the body, connecting the brain to the heart and lungs. When triggered, it sends an immediate safety signal to the entire body, commanding the heart rate to slow down and blood pressure to relax. It is pure biology, no faith required, just practice. To better understand how to apply this to daily aches or worries, let's contemplate a brilliant metaphor the Buddha offered, known as the second arrow. Imagine you are walking and unfortunately get struck by an arrow. It certainly hurts. That is physical reality. But immediately after, if you start to panic, crying out, "Why me? This wound will surely kill me," or "My luck is so terrible," then you are personally shooting a second arrow right into the old wound. The Buddha taught that the first arrow represents the inevitable pains of the human condition: old age, arthritis, declining vision, or the loss of loved ones. We cannot dodge this arrow. But the second arrow, the psychological suffering, the torment, the fear, and the catastrophic storytelling, is created by us. And the good news is, this arrow is entirely avoidable. Mindfulness helps you spot the difference between these two arrows. When back pain strikes, instead of the old habit of frustration and worry, try observing it like a scientist. You note, here's a section of pain. It is tight. It feels hot. You stop there. You don't judge it. You don't hate it. And you don't weave a tragic story about its future. When you do this, you disconnect the circuit of the second arrow. The physical pain may remain, but the mental suffering vanishes. You master your experience instead of letting it drown you. That is the power of combining brain science with mindful practice. You realize that you have a choice. Between an event happening and your reaction to it, there is always a gap. Mindfulness helps you widen that gap, giving you the time and wisdom to choose a positive response, rather than letting the brain run on its old negative autopilot. This is not empty theory. This is how we train for an old age that is not only physically healthy, but spiritually absolutely free. Having learned to befriend our breath and the sensations within our bodies, we now step into a territory that is equally vital: the landscape of the heart and connection. American culture and the West in general have always championed individualism and independence. We take pride in our ability to take care of ourselves, not wanting to be a burden on our children. Yet, the flip side of that coin is sometimes a profound loneliness. At this stage of life, loneliness isn't just an emotional state. Doctors have likened its health risks to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It weakens the heart and withers the soul. This is where we need a remedy that Buddhism calls metta, or loving kindness. Please don't misunderstand. Compassion here doesn't mean sentimentality, weakness, or merely doing charity. In the light of modern medicine, compassion is a powerful survival mechanism. When you generate a thought of love, sincerely wishing well for others or yourself, your brain immediately releases oxytocin. Oxytocin is often called the love hormone or bonding hormone. It is the natural rival of cortisol, the stress hormone we mentioned earlier. When oxytocin flows through your bloodstream, it dilates blood vessels, literally helping to protect your aging heart, while bringing a sense of warmth, safety, and belonging. Therefore, practicing compassion isn't just a moral obligation. It is a wise medical act to protect your own health. But there is a paradox I often see in my older friends. We find it very easy to love our grandchildren, easy to forgive strangers, yet we are incredibly harsh with ourselves. We often lie awake at night, tormented by mistakes from our youth, by missed opportunities, or blaming ourselves for things left undone. We become our own most ruthless judges. Buddhism and modern psychology agree on one point: you cannot pour from an empty cup. You must learn to cherish and love yourself first. Try to visualize the younger version of yourself, the one who worked hard, sacrificed, and made mistakes, but also tried their best with the limited understanding they had at the time. That person deserves forgiveness and a warm embrace from you today, not judgment. When you begin to practice self-compassion, knowing how to have mercy for your own struggles, the heavy burden on your mind lifts and inflammation levels in the body decrease accordingly. That is the foundation of a healthy old age. And when the heart has softened toward oneself, we naturally open up to the world in a very different way. This leads us to another wonderful secret for living joyfully, helping to solve a chronic illness of the social media age: comparison and envy. In America, whether we like it or not, we are often swept into a silent race of comparison. We see friends on Facebook posting photos of European cruises, neighbors with wildly successful children, and sometimes a tinge of sadness creeps into our hearts. We feel lesser, we feel our lives are too quiet, or we regret a golden era that has passed. This comparison mindset is poison. It steals the joy of the present and makes us feel lacking even when we have enough. Buddhism offers a genius solution called mudita, or sympathetic joy. Translated into modern language, it means shared joy. It means that instead of jealousy, you learn to genuinely rejoice in the success and happiness of others. You might think, easier said than done. How can I be happy seeing others have what I crave? The answer lies in a groundbreaking discovery in neuroscience in the 1990s: mirror neurons. Scientists discovered that our brains do not sharply distinguish between experiencing it yourself and witnessing someone else experience it. When you see a friend smiling happily at their grandchild's graduation, and you open your heart to truly bless them, the mirror neurons in your brain activate the exact same pleasure centers as if you were experiencing that joy. What does this mean? It means joy is an unlimited resource. When you are jealous, you are drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. But when you practice sympathetic joy, you are borrowing someone else's joy to enrich your own soul, completely free of charge. You turn someone else's success into nutritious vitamins for your own brain. Imagine life as a buffet. Instead of sitting in a corner, feeling upset that others are eating well, join in the delight. When you see a friend healthy enough to go hiking, instead of feeling self-pity for your aching leg, send them a thought: how wonderful, may they stay this healthy forever. In that very moment, the tension in your body dissolves, replaced by a gentle relaxation. Combining compassion and sympathetic joy, you will find you are no longer a lonely, older person observing the world with a critical eye. You become part of the flow of life. You realize that happiness can be found not just in what you own, but in the smile of a stranger, in the joy of friends, and in the peace of everything around you. This is how we transform the mind from a state of scarcity to a state of spiritual abundance and wealth, regardless of the numbers in your bank account or the diagnoses in your medical file. We have journeyed together through the hills of mindfulness, waded through the streams of compassion, and climbed the peaks of sympathetic joy. Now we arrive at the final leg of our journey, where we face the elephant in the room, a topic that Western culture often tries to avoid, yet it is the master key to absolute freedom: impermanence. Living here in America, we are besieged by a multi-billion-dollar anti-aging industry. Television, magazines, and social media constantly whisper in our ears that aging is a failure, that we must fight to hold on to our youth, that we must cling to what is past. This battle mindset inadvertently turns our golden years into a battlefield, where we constantly feel anxious and defeated because time is an enemy that never sleeps. But Buddhism invites you to view this from a completely different angle. Impermanence, the constant changing of all things, is not the enemy. It is the very essence of life. Look out your window. Look at the trees changing their leaves with the seasons. A brilliant autumn of gold and orange is not a sign of decay. It is a necessary transition to prepare for a new cycle. If the leaves stayed green forever, spring would never come. Your body and your life are no different. Change is not a flaw in the design. It is the most magnificent feature that allows life to continue. There is a beautiful metaphor about the river of life. If you try to cling to the past, to the health of your youth, or your former social status, you are like someone trying to build a dam to stop the water from flowing. Pressure will build, stress will increase, and eventually the dam will burst. But if you learn to go with the flow, accepting that your health today might be different from yesterday, that your memory might be a little slower, you will find yourself floating as lightly as a leaf on the water. You no longer waste energy fighting reality. Instead, you use that energy to enjoy the scenery along the riverbanks. Accepting impermanence gives you a priceless gift: the appreciation of the now. Precisely because the party doesn't last forever, this moment becomes precious. Precisely because we do not live forever, the holding of a partner's hand, a hot cup of tea in the morning, or the laughter of grandchildren becomes so sacred. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop delaying words of love. You live fully and radiantly in each moment because you know that the here and now is truly all we possess. However, my friends, intellectual understanding of this wisdom will remain just theory in a book if we do not turn it into action. Our brains need repetition to change. We cannot expect toned muscles after just one visit to the gym, and the mind is no different. Therefore, I want to offer you an action plan for your golden years. Simple exercises that have the power to rewire your nervous system every single day. First, start your day with a mindful intention. Every morning before your feet hit the floor or you reach for your phone, take 30 seconds to ask yourself, What energy do I want to bring into the world today? You might choose calm, kindness, or gratitude. Setting this intention is like setting the GPS for your brain, helping you avoid getting lost in negative news or the petty worries of the day. Second, practice the sacred pause. Throughout a long day, whenever you feel your heart rate rise due to upsetting news or a flare-up of joint pain, stop. Do not react immediately. Take 3 deep breaths. Activate your vagus nerve. Tell yourself, this is just a moment, and this too shall pass. This brief pause is your freedom. It helps you switch from autopilot reaction to responding with wisdom. And finally, end your day with a gratitude journal. Positive psychology has proven that writing down 3 good things every night improves sleep and reduces depression better than some sedatives. They don't need to be grand events. It could just be, the sun was beautiful today, I had a delicious lunch, or I laughed while watching a movie. This action teaches your brain the habit of hunting for the good instead of hunting for danger. Gradually, you will see your life filled with small joys that you previously overlooked. My dear friends, remember the image of the lotus rising from the mud? A lotus cannot bloom on clean marble. It needs the mud to live. The challenges of aging, loneliness, illness, or anxiety are that mud. Do not fear the mud and do not deny it. Use those very experiences as the nutrients to nourish the lotus of peace, wisdom, and compassion in your heart. Happiness is not a destination free of suffering. It is the ability to bloom brilliantly right in the midst of life's changes. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and that step can start today, right now. If the sharing in this video has touched your heart or given you a new perspective to comfort your soul, I invite you to click the subscribe button and share this with your old friends, your loved ones who need a word of encouragement. Especially, I would love to hear your story. Please leave a comment below, sharing with me and the community. What made you feel most at peace today? Your sharing is not just a comment, it is a connection, a source of inspiration for so many others who are seeking tranquility. I am Breath Journey. Thank you for spending your precious time walking this path with me. I wish you a new day where your body and mind are at peace, and may every breath be a complete joy. Goodbye, and see you again.